Hello, my name is Cupin. You are watching Rappler, and I am in Baguio City at Fort Rigor del Pilar, to be specific, the home of the Philippine Military Academy. Why am I here? President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. just a while ago actually addressed for the first time the PMA alumni homecoming event as the commander-in-chief. So just to clarify, this wouldn't be the first time for President Marcos to attend a alumni homecoming, but certainly, obviously, it's his first as the president of the Philippines. So just for context, the PMA is a very powerful academy if you think about it. Bukod sa fact na yung officers of mostly the armed force of the Philippines and up until siguro a few years from now, the Philippine National Police are graduates of this academy. They also go on to hold major positions, not just in the military or in the uniformed service, but in politics, business, and even the bureaucracy later on. And you'll see na several cabinet officials actually are graduates of the PMA because they're also former generals. Yung focus nung naging discussion ni President Marcos referring to his speech and even after during a chance interview with media was the laser incident or the laser pointing incident at the West Philippine Sea. Chinese boats, tumutok sila ng military-grade laser sa isang Philippine Coast Guard vessel. But before that, short context, no? I'm standing here at the Borromeo Field. Earlier, yung shot kanina, yun yung parang mismong building or yung academic hall ng PMA. almost 40 years ago actually, here on the Borromeo Field, was the venue and the witness for the first ever na military protest during the regime of the first Marcos president. I'm referring to, of course, the late dictator, the father and namesake of the current president. That was staged by the Reform the Armed Forces Movement, or RAM. But now, almost four decades later, RAM officials actually also marched here at Borromeo Field earlier. In fact, one of its leaders, former Senator Gringo Honasan, who also ran as senator under the Uniteam coalition led by Marcos in the 2022 elections, also received an award, parang Pandemic Heroes. But before, on top of the event that is the homecoming, I want to focus on what President Marcos spoke about earlier when he was addressing the alumni of the Philippine Military Academy. Siyempre, like I said kanina, no, yung parang pinaka-overarching na issue right now, specifically concerning the military, the police, and the Coast Guard, would be the laser pointing incident by the Chinese boats on the Philippine Coast Guard. Sinabi ni President Marcos kanina, he didn't say it explicitly, but he did highlight that this country will not lose 1 inch of its territory. We will continue to uphold our territorial integrity and sovereignty in accordance with the Constitution and with international law. He has spoken about this before, but I guess the context here is he's speaking directly to officials of the Philippine military, the Philippine police, and also of the Coast Guard. He also granted a quick chance interview with the media. Actually, this is his first chance interview outside of interviews with traveling media during his 3 trips abroad, talking about China, Davos for the World Economic Forum, and also most recently an official visit to Japan. So ito yung parang one of his first few na chance interviews during an event in the Philippines. Tinanong siya tungkol sa latest decision ng ICC, which of course at this point is a few weeks old na. He said that our position has not changed, and he still continues to question the jurisdiction of the ICC. Of course, that's the line that the Philippine government has used even before Marcos assumed power. I'm referring to, of course, the previous administration of Rodrigo Duterte. Again, yung mga tanong kanina also focused on the laser pointing incident. President Marcos thumbed down the suggestions or the idea of activating the Mutual Defense Treaty or our treaty with the United States, considering the act of aggression from China by sa pagtutok ng military-grade laser. Sabi niya, and I'm going to quote him from the interview earlier. He said that doing so would provoke the tensions rather than cool the tensions down. He also said that it would intensify the tensions in the area, and I think that would be counterproductive. Of course, this is also the first time he's actually spoken about the laser pointing incident, and also the fact that he summoned China's ambassador to the Philippines. According to him, we also asked him about that. He he told the ambassador that we have to, quote, find a way around this because if we are such close friends, these are not the kinds of incidents that we should be talking about between the president and the ambassador. He also said, and I think these are the more striking and pointing words. I reminded him that this was not what we agreed upon with President Xi Jinping when I visited him in Beijing. If you recall earlier this year, parang both China and the Philippines made a very big deal about the first state visit of President Marcos to Beijing that happened on January 3. And during that visit, nag-intensify yung init dito sa Baguio. During that visit, parang among the key things that were bilateral deals that were signed was, kumbaga, a direct line, a supposed direct line or a mode of communication between the Philippines and China through, of course, the DFA and in China's case, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Pero beyond that, both President Marcos and President Xi touted a new golden era, a new golden age for relations between China and the Philippines. Marcos spoke of a maturing relation between China and the Philippines. Of course, the context being, the last administration, the former President Duterte tried to pivot us towards China. Experts will say it didn't quite really pan out the way that Duterte was hyping it before the so-called pivot. And then prior to Duterte naman, relations between China and the Philippines were at their coldest and most tense under the late President Benigno Aquino. We did file and win a protest against China before an international tribunal. So yung pangako ni President Xi Jinping and President Marcos was that this relationship would mature. Tas yung undercutting nun is that tensions in the West Philippine Sea hopefully would die down or simmer down or be less intense. But in fact, what we've been seeing, and the President himself has said it, we've seen the intensification of tensions between the Philippines and China. So that's something that we will be monitoring in the coming weeks and months to see if that mechanism will actually work between the Philippines and China, and how President Marcos will handle this rather complicated relationship with our Asian superpower neighbor, China. Again, this has been Cupin reporting from Baguio City, not just about the alumni homecoming itself of the PMA, but also the discussions that overshadowed or siguro painted or dictated the context of what was being discussed here in Camp Gregorio del Pilar. Thank you for watching. This has been Cupin. Goodbye.